Welcome back to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta. This is A to Z. I'm Mark Zinno. Make sure you guys give me a follow on Twitter at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Of course, at Locked On ATL, where you can see all of the great shows here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. A to Z, Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, ATL Day Ones with Jarvis Davis and Tanisha Batiste as well. Our Braves postcast after every Braves game, Locked On Falcons and Locked On Hawks, the entire Locked On Atlanta sports crew here. Something great that we're building. We've got a lot of support and a lot of reaction from you guys so far. So please keep it up and make sure you stay tuned to Locked On Sports Atlanta every single day. And thanks for making us part of your sports listening experience here in Atlanta. All right. The Atlanta Hawks are heading into the offseason, and they clearly don't have a ton of cap room to be able to wiggle and play with and make this team better and this defense better. But they do have a number of trade targets. And as I've said repeatedly about this team, that I don't know that they can get any better without a major roster move that's going to change the dynamics of the team, right? The one thing we know is that you can't run it back with the same guys that you had this year. You're just not going to be good enough. You're not really well. You are good enough on offense because you have Trey, but I don't know if you have a depth of good enough offense on a routine basis. As you watch the NBA Finals, you're starting to see that secondary scoring be a major part of who's winning and losing games. So from that standpoint, but you're certainly not good enough on defense. I think you have the offense. You certainly have the 3-point shooting with Trey. So they're going to have to make some moves here this offseason, and that's going to require getting rid of some guys that were big parts of the team for the last couple of years, and the long playoff run that they had 2 seasons ago. So Chris Kirschner, our good buddy of the Athletic, put together a list of possible trades and players that the Hawks may target through trades this offseason. And DeAndre Ayton from the Phoenix Suns, one of them. Obviously, Rudy Gobert is on the list, but let's look at some of the other players because Rudy Gobert may be the easy target to go and get of all of them out there. But uh, if you go get DeAndre Ayton, obviously you're getting rid of Clint Capella. You may be getting rid of John Collins along in the deal. And again, this is a Phoenix Suns team that for the last couple of years has been knocking on the doorstep of an NBA title with a trip to the finals already in their pocket. So, this is a spot here where you might not have the easiest trade with this team because for them to break up their roster is a little bit different than everybody else. But it would cost, I think, a very big amount for the Hawks to be able to get DeAndre Ayton. Is he like one of the perfect complements to Trey? Yeah. I mean, is he a better scorer than Clint? Yeah. Is he the same defender? Probably. But this is a guy that can be a much better secondary scorer than the Hawks have had, and that's no disrespect to John Collins. Because I think Collins is a good secondary scorer. He really wasn't healthy all that much this year. And somehow, if you can keep Ayton and Collins in the deal, well, then you look like you have almost like a big three to that standpoint. So, it'll be interesting to see how that trade is structured if it ever goes through. Malcolm Brogdon of the Indiana Pacers. This is another guy who's got a ton of injury history here, but uh, he is an outstanding defender. And he's on a team right now in Indiana where they probably don't want players. They just want picks in return. He's pricey because he's got 3 years and 67 million left. And that is, a fairly significant number that the Hawks may have to, and Tony Ressa may have to get involved to say, hey, we're going to go over the luxury tax here and start paying that. Jeremy Grant of the Detroit Pistons, he would be probably one of the more easier guys to acquire. A very good defender and a role player. Not going to cost a ton of money, but he is a guy that is pending free agency in a year. And, do you want to pay him that kind of money? I don't think the Hawks do long term. So you'd essentially be giving away this guy for a 1-year asset that you would end up not re signing and giving away. And it kind of depends on the cost more than anything. A couple other names out there: Zach LaVine of the Chicago Bulls, which is interesting because he is more of a point guard than a two guard. And could he do more of the ball handling for Trey and let Trey operate off ball? And Could he be more of a facilitator than Trey could be offensively? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that Levine could fit in. He's a very good 3-point shooter, and I think that he's a guy that would make Trey infinitely more dangerous just because of his 3-point shooting and his ability to help spread out the floor. And that would give Trey a lot of other options, again, off ball, to see how things go. So uh, it's going to be hard because the Bulls can offer him 5 years as opposed to everybody else being able to offer 4. So it may be hard to get him out of there, but that might be a sign and trade that the Hawks have to be willing to take on that contract down the road. The final name on the list is very interesting. It's Ben Simmons, and you know there's a lot of people who wanted Ben Simmons early in the year when he was up for sale from Philadelphia. There's a lot of people who didn't, and I get the reasons why people do want him and don't want him. I'm indifferent to it all, to be honest with you. I mean, clearly we haven't seen Ben Simmons play in a long time. The last time we did see him play, we don't have the best feeling about how he played. And is this a guy that you're getting to make your team better offensively as well as defensively? Is that the expectation? Is it fair to have that expectation? Um, you know, I don't know that Brooklyn would let him go because Brooklyn was atrocious on defense last year, and they need him defensively more than anything. They probably don't need him. Yet they may be one of the teams that don't need his help offensively. Just play defense and dish the ball, and you'll be fine. So from that standpoint, yeah, he what do you call it? He could be a fit in other places, but I just don't. I don't know that the Hawks really have a ton of what they would have to give up for him would be of high level interest to them. That they're likely giving up more than they're getting in a deal for Ben Simmons, and that's really tough uh, for them to deal with, right? So there's a bunch of names out there, and this is a great column by Chris Kirschner of the Athletic, and really dives into some of the players that could be out there. Just a couple of other names he has in here: Jonathan Isaac of the Magic, the forward there; Josh Hart from the Portland Trailblazers. These are some other names out there. When you look at possible trade options for the Hawks to get better defensively, they're going to have to change the roster. It's not a question of if; it's a question of when. And if they don't do it and they run it back with this same group and only one or two minor changes, you're going to get the same results. An 8 seed and out in the first round. That's really what it's going to boil down to for them. All right, coming up next, the Atlanta Falcons are looking to revamp their offense in strange ways. We'll discuss that right here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. You search Locked On Sports Atlanta. More to come right here on A to Z.